All right, we're live.
Hello, Facebook viewers and YouTube viewers. Andy and Ann are here.
Yes, we are, and so eager to bring you the news.
Well,
If only.
these last few days of the Republic.
Yeah, exactly. I think I'll turn my phone off completely since I seem to be very bad at
Maybe I'll do that too.
Muting it.
Maybe I'll do that too.
And what could happen in the next hour?
Well, you never know, but somebody will run into the studio and tell us if there's some emergency.
That would be nice.
How do you do this? You go like this, then you go like that. Okay.
All right, 10, 9, 8. Trying not to go back to my coughing ways.
Some water.
Yes.
And we have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Humm.
I'm Ann Northrop.
And quite a lot of news this week. Top of the news, Anita Bryant, the orange juice pitch woman who sparked the religious rights anti-gay backlash back in 1977 in Miami, has died.
I suspect we have a history lesson coming up at the top of the show. At least that delays our necessity of talking about you-know-who. And a prominent Methodist theologian who recanted his anti-gay views died at the age of 76.
The U.S. House voted to ban transgender girls and women from girls and women's sports at federally funded schools. We'll have to see what the Senate does.
The Los Angeles lesbian fire chief is fighting with the mayor and is, of course, attacked by the MAGA crowd.
Brace yourself for Monday. Trump plans multiple regressive executive orders, including anti-LGBTQ ones.
There could be hundreds. And, they're getting a head start on some of this stuff. As CEOs all over America are bowing down to Trump, more detail on that, the Village People are set to perform for his inaugural party, which will be hosted by an anti-LGBT group.
Jeff Bezos' Amazon cuts support for LGBTQ rights from its website's policy page, and Meta's Zuckerberg, who we talked about last week, announces more anti-LGBTQ moves, Facebook fans.
I can't get over his makeover. Very strange. The Supreme Court will decide whether it is constitutional for the Affordable Care Act to compel insurance coverage for all preventive medicine, including PrEP.
A gay couple was beaten in Rome, sparking a big rally against anti-gay violence there.
Andy has been to Broadway to see Audra McDonald in Gypsy, and he will tell us what he thinks.
And Jeopardy has a new out gay champ.
Whee!
Okay, so we grew up with Anita Bryant.
We did, because we're old.
Who just died in December. She actually died in December at the age of 84. We're just learning about it.
Mm-hmm.
We knew her mostly as, doing the orange juice commercials.
Well, she started off as a beauty queen in Oklahoma.
Miss Oklahoma.
She became the spokeswoman for the Florida Citrus Board or whatever.
Made a lot of money from that.
Yep.
And
a singer, had a big singing career.
Soft, mostly what you would call soft pop, wholesome songs kind of thing.
Christian music, some of it.
That's some of it.
But then she got her nose out of joint about us.
So when Dade County, which is where Miami is, passed a gay rights ordinance in early 1977, this was before New York did it. We didn't get it till 86. She started a campaign to repeal it, a nascent Christian right crusade called Save Our Children. It was, we thought, now, I have to say, back then, we kind of thought, Miami, Latinos, Jews, they're for us, right? Well, they voted 2-1 against us. It was quite a shock to the system. We had massive demonstrations here. Even if you watch the movie Milk, it's a big issue in that because it's sort of, we realized there was going to be a backlash then against us.
It's also interesting that she zeroed in on the particular angle that was most upsetting and in the end most long-lasting and powerful, which was gay people are coming after your children.
Yes.
To convert them, to sexually abuse them, to whatever. That was the core of her charge.
Yes. After that, a lot of her, so big backlash for us. And a lot of her, and by the way, she goes on the campaign trail with people like Jerry. We got a picture with Jerry Falwell before the moral majority.
Yep.
And he kind of thought, there's something to this. And he's, she gets pushed off to the side eventually, and he becomes the spokesperson. A lot of her gigs were canceled. The Citrus Commission kept her on for about a year and a half at $100,000 a year, and then they dumped her.
Well, we went into a big boycott of orange juice based on her crusade, thinking that would be the best way to undermine her. Yes. And get the Citrus Commission to fire her.
And we all got scurvy.
No.
I remember Ed Murphy, who was the bouncer at the Stonewall. He went into the grocery stores with a pencil and he was sticking pencils in the orange juice cartons and letting them drain out. Whoa.
It was very fraught. It was a really big deal. Well, I think people have no idea how big a deal it was.
Look, in New York, we thought we were coming along. We're making progress. It was a shock to the system.
8 years after Stonewall.
We had a huge rally in Sheridan Square, and we formed a coalition for lesbian and gay rights. And we said, we got to work for our gay rights bill. We got to stand up for ourselves. So it kind of motivated us as well. But after that, we lost a lot of these referenda in other places.
It's the eternal roller coaster, up and down and up and down.
Okay.
But yes, one side provokes the other side, a reaction, and here we are. But she really was a crucial turning point in this right-wing crusade.
Yes, and during the campaign, somebody had a message for her. We have a little video.
And were met with protest and all kinds of problems. And
Security agent. No, let him stay.
No.
Let him stay.
Well, at least it's a fruit pie.
Let's pray. Let's pray for him right now. Anita, let's pray. Anita, why don't you pray? That's all right.
Father, we want to thank you for the opportunity of coming to Des Moines. And Father, I want to ask that you forgive him.
That we love him.
And that we love him. And that we're praying for him to be delivered from his deviant lifestyle, Father. And I just...
We forgive you and we love you.
Thank you. Could we ask you to leave?
I don't want this man touched or harmed in any way.
I'll leave. All right, I don't mind.
You have done your cause more harm.
Thus always the bigots.
Do you know who's here?
Thus always the
bigots. You know who saw you do that?
We welcome you to the Midwest. We hope you come back.
Do you know who saw you do that?
We love you as a person.
This man is from Rolling Stone magazine.
We love you.
Do you know what kind of publicity you're going to get?
Stand the garbage you spelled.
One of the most famous confrontations of all time.
Absolutely. And we chuckle at it because of pie in the face, but the harm caused by her and her crusade is just inestimable.
Now, she was sitting there with her husband, Bob Greene, who their marriage dissolved a couple of years later in 1980. Greene publicly opposed the divorce. He said her marriage but she said her marriage had never been much good to begin with. He blamed gay people on her downfall. He was rumored to be gay himself.
I know. Well, I don't think we never confirmed that. But she ended up having a gay granddaughter.
She did.
And when the granddaughter came out to her, was Anita now full of love and support? No way. She told the granddaughter that she was perverted and should drop the lifestyle, and she just never gave up.
Her name was Sarah Greene. Anita wrote a book in 1977, The Anita Bryant Story, The Survival of Our Nation's Families and the Threat of Militant Homosexuality. So she didn't pull any punches. She did try to recover her career, but it was only with kind of religious groups after that.
Yeah.
She was reviewed on television by the gay critic at the New York Times, John O'Connor, his name was.
Nice guy. I met him in recent years. Yeah.
And he said, she sounds like she's got a chip on her shoulder through this whole thing. Persistently hostile and aggressive.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Anita Bryant, unmourned, of course, by us, but an important figure.
Incredibly important
history.
In our history. And given what I hear from people who know about don't know about things much more recent, I suspect that she's lost to history for most people. So a little history lesson and, brush up on your history of people like Anita Bryant.
And I do drink orange juice now. Anyway.
I know, because it's not that good for you.
Oh, well, neither are a lot of things that I put inside me. All right. So her cause has been taken up by the fundamentalist head of the U.S. House, the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, and the Republicans there passed this week a ban on trans athletes, trans girls, in girls and women's sports at federally funded schools, K through 12. I'm surprised they didn't go after everybody, but I'm sure now this only passed 218 to 206, almost entirely along party lines.
There were 2 Democrats who voted for it and one other who abstained or didn't vote.
And they were from Texas.
Well, the good news is that this now goes to the Senate where it has to overcome the filibuster.
So they need
6 or 7 extra votes.
Right. They need 7 Democrats.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean,
not that they aren't possibly going to get them, but
right.
It would be nice to think this would be defeated.
And they're making a lot of good points in the debate. They're saying, wait a minute, you guys, I mean, what are they saying? Becca Ballant, who is the out lesbian, she said,
she called them mother effers.
She did, but she said, this is interrogation of young girls about their bodies. This is asking people to show them what is underneath their underwear.
Yes, in fact, they're calling it the promotion of predatory behavior against young girls, because this unleashes this whole permission for girls to have their genitals inspected. All girls. I mean, all girls.
Under the bill, and this is a quote, sex shall be recognized solely on a person's reproductive biology and genetics at birth. Now, a little note to the GOP. Infants can't reproduce. How about that?
Well, that would be an interesting interpretation, but it really is heinous. And I like that we at least have come up with a counter argument that might win the day, because our new president will not veto this bill.
Right.
Do not hold your breath.
And the House also, look, and this is going to come fast and furious.
Yeah.
I mean, again, many things they can't do because they need, 60 votes in the Senate, but they're going to do this reconciliation bill. And their big thing is $5 trillion in cuts to pay for more tax cuts for the rich and for the deportations. On the chopping block, Medicaid. They want. Wait a minute. They want like $2.3 trillion taken from Medicaid, if you happen to depend upon that, and the end from the Affordable Care Act and welfare programs. And they want to claw back the money for infrastructure and on the Inflation Reduction Act.
While giving tax cuts to rich people.
I mean, this is what you voted for. I don't mind saying, you idiots,
Well, but I would never make that charge against Gay USA viewers.
No, I don't mean you. But what did people
said you?
What did people think
they voted
what
for? What
did you think people were voting for? It's
they were voting for a strong daddy.
The price of eggs. All right.
But as we note the passing of Anita Bryant, we want to counterbalance that with someone who is much more of a hero who also died.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Richard Hayes died at the age of 76 in Nashville of pancreatic cancer. He was a very well-known, famous theologian who in 96, 30 years ago almost, wrote a book about how God hates gays and was very anti-LGBTQ. And he changed his mind. He totally did a 180 and in 24 wrote this book, The Widening of God's Mercy.
With his son, Christopher, arguing that the New Testament fully includes LGBTQ people and that same-sex marriage is blessed by God. or his God anyway.
He taught at Duke Divinity School for 27 years and was really a giant in the field, and got roundly rejected by his evangelical colleagues when he changed his mind. But it was, we covered that 6 months ago here, and it was a big deal.
Yes.
And so his death at 76 is a loss.
A federal judge in Kentucky, Danny Reeves, vacated the Biden administration's final rule of the Department of Education that said that Title IX of the 72 banning sex discrimination bans discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. The rule went into effect back in August, but all kinds of 7 federal judges put holds on it. Trump wants to end, of course, the Education Department entirely, but that is up to Congress, right?
Probably.
And the Biden rule is now a nullity, so Trump does not have to nullify it himself.
Biden's administration throughout tried to expand the Supreme Court's Bostock decision, which declared non-discrimination for trans people in employment. So they've tried to extrapolate that to other things, including schools and students. And the court has now said, the Kentucky court, undoubtedly to be supported up the line,
Right.
Says, no, that's a bridge too far. You can't do that.
Trump come in and say, we're not defending it anymore.
Yep.
So this judge was appointed by George W. Bush.
Oh, but as John Roberts tells us, there are no Bush judges and Trump judges and Clinton
Well,
judges.
I mean, we occasionally get good rulings out of Trump judges.
We do.
We admit that.
We celebrate it.
But let's talk about Trump.
Well, he was, before we get to his inauguration, he was sentenced, I use the term loosely, yes. Well, the idea was to bring it to a close. And if he imposed an actual sentence, then whatever.
Justice delayed, justice denied. So our friends even though Trump wasn't there, our friends at Rise and Resist were out there at the courthouse, reminding people that this is a fascist. And if you show the other picture, this is a rich man walking.
Yeah, I like that sign. But yes, thank you to Rise and Resist for having been in the court area for months and months and months, years, every time Trump trial came up, raising the issues. And, this weekend on Saturday, there are going to be people's marches around the country to protest the Trump inauguration. If you go to peoplesmarch.com, you can find one in your area. There's going to be one in D.C. There's going to be 2 in New York City, in Foley Square downtown, in Harlem uptown.
If there's one in London, I'll go. And sometimes they are international.
Yeah, exactly. Peoplesmarches.com. You can look it up.
So
Peoplesmarch.com.
We said brace yourself. Well, it's for a blitz of executive orders on Monday, some of which are sure to be anti-LGBTQ, most likely a renewed ban on trans service members. Trump is also looking for an infectious disease that he can use to close the borders. Oh, there's a disease in the world, so we can't let anybody in. Not anybody, not asylum seekers, not anybody. This is what happened during COVID.
Did you watch the Hegseth hearing?
I did.
Me too.
Depressing. In the hearing, a disturbing number of declarations of devotion to Jesus Christ for someone who was in a secular position, particularly with one who has a history of anti-Muslim animus and no less regard for those of us of no religion. He would not meet with Democratic senators other than the ranking member. He just wouldn't meet with them. Even Pam Bondi met with all the Democrats. But this guy
is a
smug, but he feels confident because the bro energy in that room from these Republicans was highly offensive.
He was smirking several times at Democrats'
That's all
questions.
He knows how to do.
Yeah.
At least our Senator Gillibrand from New York chastised him for his past support for excluding LGBTQ service members, a policy that lost us thousands of service members, including most of our Arab translators in Iraq during the war there.
Yeah, she was
and
wonderfully
Afghanistan.
specific. Yeah, a number of the Democratic senators were very strong, including, of course, one of my favorites, Tammy Duckworth, who just really lambasted him. But nobody really they went after him after his past sins, while the Republicans are asking him how many push-ups he can do. No one really got to what are your policies? What are you going to do? They talked around it a little.
What do you mean?
Never got
going to get rid of DEI, which, according to Senator Schmidt, is cultural Marxism. This is their new phrase. We lost, we don't have the commies around anymore. So DEI is cultural Marxism.
And we are commies to them.
Hegseth said he would tear out DEI initiatives. This is not, he said, a time for equity.
Yeah, I heard that and I thought, what did he just say? That was really something.
All right.
All right, so
let's talk about the CEOs. Jeff Bezos, Amazon, just paid Melania Trump $40 million for rights to a documentary about her while cutting jobs at his Washington Post.
Yeah, I heard that and I thought, wait a minute, she only gets $250,000 for a speech and she's getting $40 million? I guess that's
nothing to Jeff Bezos.
Yeah. Yeah.
Take that one down because we're going to stay on Trump a little bit. Let's talk about the inauguration. The Village People are going to perform at one of the inaugural festivities. As usual, Trump scraping the bottom of the barrel for talent. YMCA is now a MAGA theme song, go figure. The lead singer, Victor Willis, hopes YMCA helps bring the country together after a tumultuous and divided campaign.
And makes them more money.
They're going to perform at a ball hosted by the ultra-right-wing, anti-LGBTQ Turning Point USA.
Wow.
J.D. Vance will be on hand, as will be Tulsi Gabbard and Don Jr., all demonstrable anti-LGBTQ bigots. And of course, performing at the inauguration will be country artist Carrie Underwood.
Is she performing at? Yeah, she's doing. Is she doing the national? No, the Italian.
An opera singer, Christopher
yes.
Macchio, is going to sing the national anthem.
She's going to do the America the Beautiful, I think. And you know who's giving the invocation?
Franklin Graham,
Yes.
who is a horror show.
Well, that's all great news.
So let's go back to Amazon then.
Okay.
So Amazon has joined Meta and others in going full MAGA. They removed sections on LGBTQ rights from its policy page. In past, the company endorsed the Equality Act. Now the only mention is on a list of us, is on a list of marginalized communities against which they supposedly do not tolerate inequitable treatment. This is no time for equity. Equity for equity. They had a page on equity for Black people. That's gone. DEI page has been renamed Inclusive Experiences and Technology, committing to nothing more than a commitment to advancing the employee experience. So this is what's happening to the country.
Of low wages and getting locked in warehouses overnight,
Yes.
or was that Walmart?
And then
Walmart's gotten better.
tell us about Mark Zuckerberg.
Well, I just don't like his new look with the curly hair and the dashiki or whatever he's wearing. It actually looks more like a garbage bag.
Sounds like cultural appropriation.
Yeah.
But anyway, we told you about last week how he unleashed hate postings on Facebook. He just ordered the removal of tampon machines from men's restrooms in their offices in Silicon Valley, New York, and Texas. Also deleted non-binary and trans themes from its Messenger app. I don't know exactly what that means.
The desperation that these guys are showing.
Zuckerberg told Joe Rogan, the anti-gay podcaster, that companies need more masculine energy and that he's optimistic about Trump's second term because he believes Trump just wants America to win.
More masculine energy. Then get a haircut.
The employees are outraged.
Oh.
And then many of you saw this cartoon because it was nixed by the Washington Post. This is a cartoon by what's her name, Ann Taines. It's about all the CEOs, including Bezos, bowing down to the altar of Trump,
Including Mickey Mouse.
Yes, and so this was killed by the paper, but of course it's been seen by more people than it ever would have been, and she quit the paper. She's a Pulitzer Prize winner, but both, you can put that other picture back up again, both Zuckerberg, Bezos, and Tim Cook of Apple have donated $1 million each to Trump's inaugural fund. And Sam Altman, the gay guy from AI.
It makes me wonder whether we're going to read ultimately some book about the threats that were made to these guys. Are they doing this?
They know what's coming, and they're just getting it's what do they call it? It's preemptive, like
Yeah, I know what you mean. For those of you who are looking for a playbook as this goes along, Rachel Maddow will be back to 5 days a week on MSNBC in the evenings.
Under a new program director.
Yeah, they're doing some executive changes, but she, through April, will be on current plan, and Alex Wagner will be back after that in her 4-day-a-week stint with Rachel on one. And meanwhile, Alex Wagner will be doing field reports. That's the current plan. We'll see how long that lasts. And also, you wonder what Sarah McBride is doing in the House, the newly elected trans member from Delaware. Well, she's introduced her first piece of legislation. She and a Republican member together have introduced a bill outlawing scams by credit repair organizations, these companies that say, we will fix your bad credit rating. Yes. So, I mean, it's an attempt to establish herself as independently for the people without bringing in the trans stuff. So we'll see.
Well, I'd be curious what she said during the trans debate, or at the House, if they allowed a debate on the thing.
I don't think much, but I don't know that for sure. We should check back on that.
Okay.
Meanwhile, the president currently, for a few more days, Mr. Biden, is busying himself with giving the Pope Francis, a Presidential Medal of Freedom with distinction.
He's an American. He's a Latin American.
Well, will Trump be incorporating all of Latin America into the United States?
His nominees keep getting asked about that, and they dodge the question.
Look, the Pope, on behalf of the poor, great. The Pope on LGBTQ people, not so good as people would like to think.
He makes nice noises but don't add up to changing the policy of the Catholic Church, which is to condemn us as intrinsically disordered and evil.
That is still
gay love
the
is
policy
wrong.
of the church.
We'll talk about it later. I mean, we might as well now. The Italian bishops are saying, "Oh, you can still become a priest if you're gay. You just can't have sex." Well, nobody's supposed to have sex, but I mean, everybody does. That's the other thing. Both the heterosexuals and the homosexuals.
Now, am I crazy? Don't answer that. Didn't we some years ago have this discussion about gay men could enter the priesthood if celibate?
Yes, we did.
How is this a new announcement?
No, because in the interim, they basically said, but it's too big a risk. If they have the inclination, you know how they are, don't take them. That's what they were saying.
Well, the new thing says, if they have the inclination, it can be okay if they only have a little inclination. If they have a big inclination, keep them out.
Sex is a very powerful drive. And the whole thing is stupid to ask, human beings not to have sex for the rest of their lives.
Well, now you're condemning the whole Catholic Church.
I guess so. It's a pretty stupid. Come on, but it's totally hypocritical.
Of course,
I mean, I know that almost all of them have
hypocritical.
sex.
Now we're back to the U.S. Congress.
Okay. All right.
Meanwhile, the Supreme Court has agreed to hear a case about whether insurance companies under the Obamacare law can be mandated to provide coverage for all preventative measures.
And this is everything, folks. This is like cancer screenings. This, of course, is PrEP, for HIV. And of course, the people bringing the case saying, we don't want to encourage homosexuality, so we don't want to pay for PrEP through our insurance companies.
Yes, it's they're claiming a religious exemption. They're saying this violates our religious principles. to have to give gay people preventive medicine to keep them from getting sick.
But what they're basically saying is the Affordable Care Act has a panel that looks at the health needs of the country and makes decisions about what should be covered by the insurance companies. And they're saying, no, Congress has to mandate every single one of these things. They can't make these decisions. They're not authorized to do it. And that's the right wing's attack on government in general.
And they've made progress on that because the Supreme Court did decide recently that agencies and boards like this were not necessarily empowered to make decisions.
But the worst thing about, no, I'm going to say the worst thing about this is horrific, by the way.
Yep.
But it is up to President Trump and likely his HHS secretary, RFK Jr., to decide whether to pursue the government's appeal of the Fifth Circuit ruling or just accept it.
Because the Biden administration is on our side on this and has argued such to the Supreme Court. But when the administration changes and we have a new attorney general and HHS secretary, they can flip that and they can say, the government is changing its mind and taking a different position.
And the challengers are represented by the America First Legal Foundation, which is just filled with Trump alumni anyway.
Yeah.
Most of whom are probably going into the government.
And then at
it's depressing.
At the state level, the trend is for bounty laws. This is taking place in Texas especially, but more and more across the country. And what these laws say is that the state will support civil suits and pay whistleblowers who turn in like people who assist on abortions in non-abortion states or LGBT books in libraries. If they ferret those out, then they can get paid by the state and the librarians can be prosecuted.
I was going to call it like the children's hour, but this is mostly the parents' hour. It's terrible.
Yeah.
And, if you get... There's a big article in the issue of the New Yorker this week with cover of President Elon Musk on the cover about how, and this has been going on for ages, how religious schools are getting all this government money now. And it's a long-term trend. But in New York City, they passed overwhelmingly a bill to double the money to $40 million to give security guards to religious schools and other private schools. All the gays voted for it, including our council member, Eric Botcher, and except for Chai Ase.
Yeah.
That was the only one who voted against it. And it's, look, if there is a credible threat against any place, a grocery store, you send police, you do what you have to do. But just to give staff, and the only reason these politicians do it is because there's so many votes controlled by these religious groups, and they know if they want to run for higher office, they need them. So they just give them money. And this week I read that, right in our neighborhood, there's not enough security guards at the public school to control the crowds. And so because they're short staffed and the budget was cut.
And the other piece that came out this week, I think in ProPublica, was about charter schools getting more and more money from the government. And it used to be that people would defend charter schools as being a place for poor kids to get a better education because the public schools were terrible. But now it turns out that more and more people with money are sending their kids to charter schools, and yet they're getting lots of funding from the government. And the public schools, as we feared, are being robbed of resources.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
And, the other thing with these religious schools is they poison the minds of kids to us with their anti-gay stuff. And this is like religious freedom. So nobody should be getting government money if they run a bigoted organization. Jimmy Carter stood up to that on racial discrimination when he was president.
And these schools reject some kids. Public schools have to take everybody and try to help everybody. But charter schools can be very selective.
So on top of that, New York's ultra-religious yeshivas have filed a new civil rights complaint against the state saying, you're bothering us too much. You're interfering with our education too much. Send us the money, but stay out of our schools where we're not educating the kids to the basics. They're failing these kids.
This is what makes us depressed about the state of the world.
Yes.
And meanwhile, they're fighting over that in LA, where the fire chief is an out lesbian, Kristen Crowley. There she is on the left. In the middle of these fires, of course, what's happening? The right wing is blaming her as a lesbian for screwing up the fires. This is a DEI hire. She's unqualified,
Right.
and she's messing it up. Now, she's completely qualified. She's been in the fire department for decades. She's a very competent fire chief, and she, in fact, has been very outspoken in saying that the city has been cutting back their funds for years, not giving them the resources they need, and that's a problem.
The
with
right
this.
wing wants to talk about anything but climate change, which is going to overwhelm us all, and not just fires. It's crazy weather. It's, you know, we're going to get flooded in New York. She's also gotten into an open fight with Karen Bass, the mayor, saying that her department is understaffed and underfunded. And they had a long closed door meeting. Everybody thought she was going to get fired, but they came out in unity.
But she continued her complaints about lack of resources.
Yeah. Now, look, LA has, you know, to repeat this, but if you watch Fox, you're not getting this. LA is a tinderbox. No rain for 7 months. The winds blew at 100 miles an hour. This no amount of water, no matter how much water they had, was going to stop this.
You know, LA is not supposed to exist. It's only because they divert water from the Colorado River that it can exist in the first place. It should be a desert, and this is
it's becoming a desert again.
Yeah,
and horrible. And I feel for everybody out there.
Horrible.
But you know, what does Trump talk about? Drill, baby, drill. We're just going to make it worse, even though oil and gas production has never been higher.
And don't hold your breath for him devoting any federal resources to help LA in the midst of this utter tragedy.
I'm surprised he hasn't thrown out the Mexican firefighters who came over to help. Oh, no, he doesn't get to say that yet.
Give him a week.
Okay.
All right. So
and, if you want to be further depressed, New York City has a mayoral election this year, and the leading candidate is Andrew Cuomo, our disgraced governor. And Eric Adams is down to 6%, our current governor.
And waving around polls from 4 years ago that showed Andrew Yang had the most popularity early on.
All right. Okay.
I thought Adams might recover with the success of congestion pricing.
Well, I mean, but he distances himself from that, and Trump may try to get rid of it. So anyway, all right. In Michigan, a man shot and killed a trans woman, Ashia Davis, 34, in June 2023. He pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. Carlos Lamar Scotland. He was 17 at the time of the murders. He faces 17 to 30 years in prison. Her friend, Julissa Assad, director of the Fair Michigan Justice Project, a trans advocacy group, said Davis was shot execution style on the back of the head. She called out Scotland, this guy, for his rude behavior in court and lack of remorse. Ashia's mom said she was her only child and was just getting a job and going to school.
And in anticipation of the Trump administration going after trans people, California State Senator Scott Wiener has introduced a proposal in the state to seal people's gender marker change records. So that's a good anticipatory.
But in Florida, the administration of the wicked Governor DeSantis revoked a trans person's license over a gender marker change. This guy, this person, James Rose, had posted on TikTok with 500,000 followers that they navigated the system to update their gender on their ID using a loophole to replace lost licenses. So the Motor Vehicles Bureau canceled Rose's license and replaced it with one incorrectly listing their gender as male. Florida is one of 4 states completely banning people from changing gender markers on licenses.
Also in Florida, in Delray Beach, Dylan Brewer, 19 years old, is going to have to pay $6,000 for the damage he did with his truck defacing a rainbow sidewalk. There he is.
That was erected in memory of the 2016 Pulse massacre. He's charged with felony criminal mischief and reckless driving as he did multiple burnouts with his tires. His truck was flying a large flag reading President Trump. And this was a February 4th incident in which he nearly hit a man riding a scooter near the crosswalk. He was turned in by his friends, but somebody mounted an online fundraising campaign for him, saying his First Amendment rights were being violated, and they raised $36,000, mostly from anonymous givers.
First Amendment rights?
Yes.
I have a right to deface a
First
cause?
Amendment.
Oh my
Well,
God.
there was something called the insurrection on January 6,
Yeah.
2021, too.
How dare you?
So he's supposed to do anger management, 12 months probation, 75 hours community service. The last punk to deface the crosswalk, Alexander Jurich in 2021, who was celebrating Trump's 75th birthday, that's where this comes from.
Yep.
He got 100 hours of community service in order to write a 25-page essay about the Pulse massacre. At his trial, his father said his son was a disappointment. The kid started crying. Local LGBT groups refused to work with him. They didn't want,
Yeah.
They,
Well, I can remember when we used to have those debates in New York City. They tried to assign people who had committed hate crimes to Hetrick Martin to volunteer. And Hetrick Martin said, we don't want them
we
here.
were a gay youth agency where we worked. The state attorney general in Florida said they won't classify these as hate crimes because the intersection is owned by a municipality, not an individual.
Okay.
Unbelievable.
Don't the crosswalks represent individuals?
Please.
All right. Well, we mourn the death of a much better person, out gay firefighter Gene Walsh.
Also a paramedic. He was one of the founders of Fire Flag, which is back in the early 80s, I guess. And he went on the Joan. This is the gay. It was very hard to be a woman in the department. Very hard to be gay. And he went on the Joan Rivers show, and here's the exchange.
Were you gay when you joined the firefighters?
Well, gay is a label. I really consider myself.
Were you out of the closet?
Yes.
Okay.
But what happened was my ex-father-in-law, who is also a firefighter, called up the firehouse and said that you have a faggot coming to your house.
What?
And,
Go back. When you
We're coming out of Proby school.
right, your ex-father-in-law called him up and told him you were gay.
Right.
Oh, all right.
And the captain told him that he's got to prove himself as a firefighter and no matter what. And 6 months later, I heard about that story. For 6 months, the guys did not harass me. There was nothing. And I didn't even know it existed until one day, we were at a party and somebody asked, well, how long have you been gay? And I was like, devastated. And they said, well, yeah, so-and-so called. And
That's wonderful. That's lovely.
I was flattered.
It's
and it shows the true emotions of firefighters, that they're dedicated to helping each other.
Yeah.
Well, let's hope so. But unfortunately, Gene, not too long after that, suffered a very debilitating stroke and ended up, having to use a wheelchair all the time. But yet he was a constant presence at Irish events, gay demonstrations, parades, including St. Pat's for All and the Fifth Avenue Parade. So, he hung in there even after his terrible stroke. There he is with a bunch of Irish activists. Brendan Fay, Danny Drum, and others.
Loving husband, Danny Levins, who predeceased him.
Yeah. Okay. As the Texas legislature opens its... Oh, wait a minute. We shouldn't go to that first. We're going...
let's... I was interested for this note about David Mixner, who tried a while ago. He asked to be buried on Hart Island.
Which is for when they don't have anybody picking up the body, basically.
Yeah, and a lot of people with AIDS were buried on Hart Island, hundreds and hundreds during the height of the epidemic because their families wouldn't acknowledge them, and he wanted to be buried there, which I thought was very interesting.
Yep. And tell us about Governor Tina Kotek of Washington.
Kotek. Tina Kotek is the first out gay governor, followed closely by Maura Healey in Massachusetts. It's her on the right in this picture. And she, in this picture, is swearing in the out bisexual Dr. Elizabeth Steiner as the state treasurer of the state of Washington. Dr. Steiner is the first LGBTQ person in this position as state treasurer and the first woman. She's a family physician and former legislator. She is dedicated to helping kids and families, very, very popular. And the report is that there was a thunderous ovation in the legislature when this swearing-in ceremony took place. It sounds really cool.
And very well received in the Texas legislature, at least by some people, was as they opened their 89th session in Austin, the House Democratic whip, Venton Jones, got down on one knee. Venton is the guy on the left, and proposed marriage to his longtime partner, Gregory Scott Jr. Jones is the vice chair of the Texas LGBTQ caucus. He said, "Gregory and I stand as proof that progress is unstoppable and no amount of hate can erase the truth of who we are." And that's what's going to have to happen. Both personally, it's tougher in Texas, but also, going to have to work through the states to
it's part of the wave right now of people getting married as fast as they can before the Trump administration takes office, and everybody starts bringing petitions to the Supreme Court to overturn the federal right to same-sex marriage.
Right.
All right, international news.
Well, in Rome, a gay couple was attacked on New Year's Eve in the Malatesta area. As they walked hand in hand, they were attacked by 10 people for 15 minutes. Stefano and Matteo had to walk to the ER because no ambulance was available. Stefano had head trauma, broken nose, swollen face, a lot of anger and fear, though he managed to defend himself.
Sound
under. So what this is, this sound under. Okay. So they spoke they were at a rally and they were giving an interview. And in the video, they're saying, if you live in fear, you don't go anywhere. You've got to turn the sound down. You are always free. Love must be free. Love must be lived. And you feel about expressing yourself. We are free to express we continue to do so. And then there was applause and a kiss. And so a ton of people turned out for this.
Yes. In Canada, Vancouver Island University players are boycotting games against Columbia Bible College because the Columbia Bible College coach condemned a trans player, Harriet McKenzie, on the Vancouver Island team. And then players from the Columbia Bible College attacked her. This is a basketball team. So the Vancouver Island University is standing up for its trans player.
Well, it's a huge controversy. I mean, the Bible College is accusing the other team of defamation. So it's gotten quite ugly. Well, Canadian law protects trans athletes and women in girls' sports. I know they're trying to undo that in the United States, but that's where they stand.
And how will this play out if the conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, 45 years old, becomes the new president of Canada?
Well, he's the Trump of Canada, and the election could be in the spring now that Trudeau has resigned as chair of the party. He's going to stay on until his own party can get a new prime minister. But this guy's 45, fiercely anti-immigrant, in contrast to Trudeau.
But pro-abortion and pro-same-sex marriage.
Well, that's right. He does support abortion rights. But he is very combative at what he calls utopian wokeism.
He was ejected from the parliament for calling Justin Trudeau wacko.
Yeah. And in France, the neo-fascist leader Jean-Marie Le Pen of the National Front Party has died at 96. He downplayed the Holocaust, compared homosexuality to pedophilia, just like David Mamet, the playwright, and was so extreme that his right-wing daughter, Marine Le Pen, who succeeded him as leader of the party in 2011, banned him and changed the name to the National Rally. He advocated forcibly isolating PWAs in 1987. Her party is leading in the polls for the new president there, but she faces a trial on embezzlement charges.
Did we talk last week about the Constitutional Court of Lithuania overturning their no promo homo law?
I think we did at some point.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, that
Yeah.
was good.
Yes.
They said it was an unconstitutional violation of human rights. And finally, in Canada,
Yes.
Hyundai, the auto manufacturer, has put out an ad that's getting a lot of attention, but because it's a commercial ad, we'll link to it in our show note and not show it here. But
And you can get our show note by writing, go on our website and sign up, and you get a weekly email with what's going to be on the show and these extras. KUSATV.org.
The ad shows a very well-known, prominent lesbian hockey couple, ice hockey players, and
that's Brianne Jenner and Haley Cudmore.
And shows them, one of them driving the car, and there's a sign that says baby on board, and it shows their little baby, but then it pans over to the other hockey player asleep in the back seat.
The Hyundai Tucson, which is the name of the car, has a new thing called baby mode, which means it brakes gently and it accelerates gently and it doesn't wake anybody up.
Riders in my car would appreciate that. All right. Entertainment news?
Well, a little AIDS news. I mean, should we talk about what journalist Mark King exposed this week?
Sure.
Yeah. So a bunch of leaders of HIV service organizations filed onto an amicus brief saying, siding with Gilead scientists, which is being sued by HIV/AIDS activists on behalf of 24,000 people who use an HIV drug with unnecessary side effects. The point is that Gilead held back the new drug, which has less side effects, and people kept having to use this thing. This is being led by people like Peter Staley and others in the California courts.
Let me clarify a little. Gilead makes a drug.
Yeah.
It's
TDF.
Yes. And that's the first drug of its kind, but it has a lot of side effects. And then they come up with a new drug, a new version. But the patent has not run out on the first one, and they want to keep making money off of that. So they don't release the new drug yet. For several years, they keep making available only the less good drug that has side effects. So finally, the new drug comes out. And now AIDS activists are suing Gilead for withholding the new drug. And Gilead is fighting back and saying, we have a right to do what we want to do. And they got a number of AIDS service organization leaders to sign on with them against the AIDS activists.
Many of whom get tons of Gilead money, but many.
But speak up.
Right.
And don't get muzzled by this.
Right.
And so Mark King, who is a longtime person living with HIV and journalist and a very courageous and great.
He writes My Fabulous Disease, which is his blog.
Yes. Highly recommended. And so he wrote about this and everybody's going, whoa, this is quite the expose. Yes.
Well, but it's all there in the briefs.
Right.
All right. Entertainment news.
Yeah. So, The Return of the Traitors, season 3 on Peacock.
What a theme for Monday.
Well, this is the show hosted by Alan Cumming. That's why it's very, very, very gay. I would recommend season 2, which was great, but it started off with Peppermint, drag performer, being the first one voted off the castle. And that was a big scandal because, it looked quite discriminatory. So this year, to make up for it, they have like 6 out LGBTQ players. And we've all been looking forward to it, but it is a mess so far this year. No one has any strategy. No one knows how to talk to each other.
They need you.
Well, all they had to do was look at seasons 1 and 2. How could they not have figured it out? So I assume they will get themselves organized as they go along. But meanwhile, they are being mean to the housewives participants. So there's Bob the drag queen. There's Bob Harper, the fitness guy. Chriselle Staus from Selling Sunset.
Where do you see this show?
Ivor Mountbatten.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Ivor Mountbatten is the gay member of the royal family.
Exactly. Peacock. Traitors, the
Okay.
Traitors.
All right, I saw Gypsy on Broadway starring Audra McDonald, the great Audra McDonald. It's a smash hit at the Majestic, directed by the out director George C. Wolfe and produced by Tom Curtihy, also out. The book is by Arthur Lawrence and lyrics by Stephen Sondheim. A lot of gay collaborators.
Mostly dead.
Though Julie Stein wrote the music and he was not gay. So the show is from 1959,
I like the movie with
based
Roz
on a
Russell.
memoir of the striptease artist Gypsy Rose Lee. Set in the 1920s as vaudeville and burlesque are on the wane, McDonald is Rose, the ferocious stage mother, and not the least bit likable. I mean, the character isn't. Though Herbie, played by Danny Burstein, is in love with her.
It's so strange that you have to explain the plot of Gypsy, which has been
But the songs and the humor is so good, and the
Yes.
audience roots for her,
Yes.
especially Joy Woods as Louise, who transforms herself into Gypsy. So, Audra's quite operatic. That's a new take on the role. And she's also a sexier Rose than I've ever seen.
So did you like it?
I liked it enough. I was sitting with our friend Rob Shooter, who said, it's the best Gypsy I've ever seen.
Did you see Patti LuPone?
I did. I saw Tyne Daly. I liked her a lot.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I will repeat and brand myself as a Philistine that I liked Rosalind Russell in the movie.
Sure.
Yeah.
So Jeopardy held its second chance tournament for losers who played well and came close. And the winner was outgay Drew Goins. He's a journalist from Hawaii. He's an editor at the Washington Post. But on the final Jeopardy, the answer was Tinder. And he writes it Tindr, very much like Grinder. They don't challenge you for spelling, but everybody said gay. And so he also regretted missing a Taylor Swift question, but he spelled it anyway. He's put up the other picture of him. He's not hiding. What is this
I'll
t-shirt?
take being cute for $200.
He leads a very openly gay life. He was a fantastic contestant.
And he is cute.
And he's become quite a crowd favorite.
Well, good. A nice guy, evidently.
I guess so. He gets all over the world, for God's sakes.
Okay.
For a Washington Post
congratulations. Congratulations, Drew. There's a new book out, Jimmy, The Secret Life of James Dean by Jason Colavito. And one of the stories in it was that James Dean told Liz Taylor when they were making Giant together that he had been molested by a priest when he was 11 years old. Now, Kevin Sessom said Liz Taylor told him this story 30 years ago, and he wrote it, I guess. But here it is again, if you want to read it, in Jimmy, The Secret Life of James Dean.
The BAFTA nominations are out. These are the British Film Awards. They can't come up with the Oscars because of all the LA trouble. And Amelia Perez is still on a roll with 11 nominations. Well, not the most, but a lot, including Best Film and Best Actress for trans actress Carla Sofia Gascon. Selena Gomez and Zoe Saldana were nominated for Best Supporting Actress, also of LGBTQ interest. Daniel Craig, Best Actor for Queer. He's not, but the role is. And Willem Harper for Best Documentary with Will Ferrell and his trans friend, Harper Steele.
Yeah.
And out actor Coleman Domingo was nominated for Best Actor for Sing Sing.
Out actor.
He's gay, the role isn't. Got that?
And former guest on Gay USA.
So I'm not going to be here next week. Marin will be here.
Yes.
I hope the Republic will be here when I come back.
Well, Marin and I will dissect the inauguration and everything around it and after. So that'll be next week here on Gay USA. And you're just taking a quick trip across the pond and you'll be back the week after that. So thank you. Batten down the hatches, buckle up. The worst is yet to come.
Keep the home fires burning. Well, I shouldn't say that with what's going on in LA, but that's the old expression.
Sad. Yes, very sad. But we'll see you next week.
Right.